Some requests to talk about how to study. And how to study specifically, today I'll talk about history and science. So bear with me, this video will be a little long because I have a lot to say, but I really think it's super important. This is my cumulative knowledge. Now that I'm in college, life hasn't gotten easier, and I think I'm just as busy, if not even busier than I was in high school. But history and science are one of my favorite classes, and I think I've collected, and I've also done now, a ton of research. So I just scoured the internet for as much information as I can about how to study and ways to study effectively. Trust me on this, take notes on what I'm saying. On my website, I'll post a summary of everything I'm saying now to help you remember what I said. But hopefully some of these tips will help. So I've divided this up into a couple of sessions. If I keep looking off camera, it's because I took notes on what to say in this video, so that's why. But first of all, before class, it's really really important to do the reading before class. So for example, if you know tomorrow in class you're going to be studying chapter 1 in biology, the teacher will be, and usually there's a syllabus. If not, guys, you're students, you can ask. Teachers never get these kind of questions, and they love you when you do. So please ask. So so let's say you're studying chapter 1 at home. Before your teacher talks about chapter 1, go home and read chapter 1. Yes, it's a pain in the butt. It's extra work. Let me justify and let me tell you why this is super important. If you do the reading beforehand, first of all, it's not super stressful if you don't finish. It's okay. You didn't have to do it anyway. Second of all, most importantly, if you do the reading in class, you'll be able to pay attention better. If you do the reading before class starts, you'll be able to pay attention better in class. Let me give you an example. A lot of times if something is really brand new, it takes me, and I consider myself a pretty good student, pretty intelligent. It takes me a good 2 or 3 tries to understand something complicated, especially in science or a complicated historical event. If you do the reading beforehand, you're learning it one time on your own. By the time the professor says it again the second time, you're already familiar. You're already somewhat familiar. You're not like, oh, I've never heard of these words before. Otherwise, in class, you're so busy trying to figure out what in the world is going on. It's difficult to take notes and listen and remember and then have to do the homework. So step number 1, before the class starts, do the reading in advance. I do this. I'm taking right now 2 foreign languages at the same time, and let me tell you, it's really difficult. And the only way I keep up is I study the vocabulary before class starts, and that way in class it's already a second review. So class time, I'm using class as a review and not as sort of like a what's going on, I don't understand what's happening kind of situation. Second of all, stay awake, be awake. I know this is like counterintuitive. I remember so many days in high school where I just like, if I just don't sleep today, I have 8 extra hours to study. It's a stupid idea, guys. Really stupid. If you're tired, go to bed. Whatever you do at 3 o'clock in the morning, midnight, if you don't absolutely, I mean, it's even better to try to wake up early. I know I'll have a separate video addressing this, but if you're not in waking class, not only have you wasted the 3 hours you stayed up all night, you've also then wasted class time, because if you can't stay awake, difficult to pay attention. Okay, and really important. So I'll talk about reading a little further, but I'll skip on now to during class. In class, take notes. Some of my students misunderstand me when I say take notes, and I'm not asking you to do a transcript of the teacher's lecture. Please don't do that. A teacher will talk really fast, say too much, things often you don't need. Do not write everything down. It's way more important, this is me personally, but I do think this is true, to pay attention and don't write everything down. Usually whatever the teacher's saying is either in a PowerPoint that you could download or ask for, or it's in the book itself. So you don't have to write every single little thing down. Get the main vocab words, get the main points. By now you should have taken a couple of tests and you should know the format of the test. Does your teacher ask for essay questions? Is it mostly multiple choice? How difficult are the tests? This goes for both science and for history. When you take notes, make sure you date write the date down. This sounds like something really, really silly, but it can save you a lot of time when you need to look up something later, especially as your classes end. Trust me on this, in college they get much more complicated. You have many more classes. It gets a little complicated. So write the date down, write the subject. What is the topic? The worst thing is when you take all these notes, first of all, you can't read it, and second of all, you don't know where in your notebook it is. It's stuck on some random piece of paper. If you're going to be unorganized with your notes, don't take notes because that's not going to help. So if you're going to take notes, please make sure it's organized. Organized in a way, I won't talk about ways to organize because I think everyone's a little different, but get it in a place where preferably all in one place, not loose leaf, and legible. Guys, in class, teachers often say, and now that I've been doing teaching and both teacher and student, I do this a lot. Guys, this will be on the test, or this is really important, or pay attention right now. I mean, teachers often say these kind of things, and you're like, oh yeah, and I remember, I still do this sometimes, and it's horrible. You're like, oh yeah, I remember that. And then when you're studying for the test, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you're like, shoot, what was the thing that she said or he said? So when the teacher says in class, this will be on the test, or important, pay attention, underline it, circle it, highlight it, do something in your notes so you remember. It saved my butt so many times when I think, oh, I'll remember, but I don't, okay? Another thing is ask questions. Ask questions. I mean, don't be the annoying, I know nobody wants to be the annoying idiot that asks questions every 3 seconds. However, if you don't understand something, honestly, I do know what this feels like. In physics, I used to be really self-conscious about asking questions. I just felt like, God, these are really, really stupid. Like, how can someone not know basic science? Science was not my specialty. I was not particularly good at it. Definitely not physics. But you guys, you will feel so much more stupid if you waste the entire hour, however long your class is, totally confused because you were too afraid to ask that one question in the first 5 minutes. Just ask. Trust me, somebody else in class is probably feeling just as bad as you and is going to secretly love you for asking a question. So don't ask a question every 5 minutes. But if you don't understand something, ask. And a side benefit of asking questions, chances are when you're studying, if you're the one who asked the question, you will remember it. Trust me, you will remember it. But if you wait until the teacher or somebody asks you, often you won't remember as well. So ask the questions you don't understand. Okay, so now after class, what do you do? I know you have lots of homework. Usually, from what my students tell me, homework doesn't actually take that long. It's the studying and the reading that takes forever. I'm lucky to have trained myself. I read extremely quickly. So, and as an English major, you're often reading multiple novels in a week. So I kind of want to share some of these things with you. Okay, so with reading, I'm not talking about studying, I'm just talking about reading. Guys, don't read everything. Do not read everything. You don't have time to read everything. It's impossible to understand and remember everything, so don't do it. Chances are reading takes forever, so don't read everything. However, I'm not telling you not to read. It's really important to read. I remember what I said about reading before class. Okay, but this is called the fancy, I'm going to look this up right now, but the fancy official name is called SQ3R strategy. But basically, read the introduction. Introductions are good. It sets your brain, tells your brain where in history or what science topic we're going on. Read the introduction. Scan the section and headings. For me, it depends on you, but I take notes. I tend to take notes in the reading and not take too much notes in class. So the night before, I read. I take notes. I copy down all the section headers. Usually textbooks are great. They're in blue or green. They're highlighted already. So write down the section headers. So if it says introduction, and I make this an outline. Okay, and then after each section, write down in bullet points. Read it, skim it as quickly as you can. Write down bullet points, vocabulary words, things like that. Okay. Now, after each section, I want you to ask yourself, what was that about? Cover of the book, I literally want you to close the book. A lot of times your brain will say, you trick yourself into thinking, oh, I know it, I remember, and then, literally someone can ask you 5 minutes later and you're going to be like, I have no idea what I just read. Close the book and ask yourself, test yourself. Yes, it's annoying, yes, it's a pain, but ask yourself, what did I just read? Can I even remember what I read 5 seconds ago? I've done this in person with a lot of students and they literally can't tell me what they just read like a minute ago. If you find yourself not being able to remember anything, stop reading. Think about the way you're reading, okay? Because you're wasting your time. If you keep reading and you can't remember what you're reading, then what's the point, okay? So really make sure, read a section, maybe 5 or 6 paragraphs, a page, close the book, ask yourself, what did I just read? And then write it down. So for me, when I read, I take a lot of notes. And then in class the next day, during the lecture, instead of like jotting everything down crazily, trying not to, trying to listen and write at the same time, I basically already have all my notes written. And all I have to do in class is circle the things that the professor or the teacher mentions specifically. I highlight things that she reinforces. And then you'll notice if you wrote down 100 things in your reading the night before,